Hello everyone. So today let us talk about LibreOffice, and I just want to share my approach and my experience of dealing with Microsoft Word, PowerPoint, and Excel files, especially if I'm working with let us say a client. Now the thing is, uh, and this is of course based on my experience over the years. First of all, I try to avoid these formats if I can. And when I say I try to avoid, basically, if I have to send someone a document, I would send it in a PDF format or in a text format, and and in most cases it works. But from time to time, someone would send me an Excel sheet. Now, when I use LibreOffice, Excel sheet, of course, you can open it. In most cases, it works. And because Excel sheet is, of course, dealing with data, which is, of course, presented in a tabular format. And I don't really think I have any issues opening the file, doing some small changes, and sending it back. At the same time, the same is also applicable for, not equally applicable, but it is, from my experience, the Word files are also fine, because Word files, when you open those files in LibreOffice, you can do small changes, and it also works. Of course, the formatting is always an issue, and that is why I mentioned I try to avoid wherever I can. And when it comes to PowerPoint presentations, yes, you can open PowerPoint presentations, but for some reason, uh, maybe I'm not really sure how I need to fix this, but there is always something wrong. So if I receive a PowerPoint presentation and if I make some changes and if I send it back, there is always something wrong with the format, and I, of course, if you're dealing with clients, you want to avoid these situations where if you send a PowerPoint presentation, which they want to see nicely, I mean, the expectation is that it should work. Of course, it is a problem. And that is why I mentioned again that if possible, I just don't use these formats. Now, what I do, fortunately, when it comes to Microsoft based formats, like for example, if you're dealing with a Word document, I try to use the online version because that generally works, because you just need to open those things in your browser. And because I use Linux, and of course I use Brave, it works all the time. I mean, I don't really think I have any issues opening it in a, because it is of course online, and that is what I do. And I think in a way, because most of majority of the work that I do is around Jira or Atlassian tools consultation. If let us say I'm dealing with a client, I tell them that if you want to send me an Excel sheet, it is okay, send it to me. But uh, whenever you're trying to export something from Jira to create a report, do it in a CSV format. And whenever it comes to collaboration, usually when people use Jira, they also use Confluence. So I tell them, okay, do it on Confluence. If you want to make a presentation, I'm not a big fan of presentations, because if you make a presentation, you're basically, number one, you're duplicating the information which is already there somewhere. For example, usually people create a slide to showcase or to report on data coming from Jira. I mean, of course, I'm going to share and talk about experiences or use cases, basically in my domain. So if you're creating a report in PowerPoint, you're basically copying something like a pie chart from Jira and pasting it somewhere. Then you add some commentary on top of it. So this is of course duplication, and I know that you can't really always create uh, these reports in Jira. I know there are ways to do it using apps like EasyBI, if you're familiar with EasyBI. The thing is that, and by the way, you can also do these things using SharePoint. You can actually create wonderful reports based on data that comes from Jira, and you can do that by running some VBA, for example. And it is always a problem for me because if someone is sending me in a format which I need to open in Linux, then uh, it is never really perfect, which is, I guess, fine. LibreOffice works for most cases, but it works when the other person is also using LibreOffice or the same ODT format. But if you're dealing with someone who is using Microsoft-based tools, then it is a problem. And that is why, uh, and of course, if I'm working with someone where, because I also use Windows, by the way, and of course, if you're using Windows, and no problem at all. But majority of the work which I do, and most of my time goes working on my own laptop, running Arch Linux, LibreOffice, and of course, I prefer to create PDF files or maybe just a text file, or if I'm using a tool like Jira or Confluence, just do it there. And if you're talking about doing some reports, just use the tool which is meant for doing that. If you basically copy the information from one tool and paste it somewhere else, for example, I know many people use Excel sheet to again report on data from Jira. So you can of course export data from Jira to a CSV, then open the CSV in Excel and create your reports. It is actually fine if you're doing it once in a while, but if you are doing it regularly, then it is of course duplication. At the same time, the moment you export something from Jira, it is outdated. So by the time you're looking at a pie chart that you created maybe by spending 2 hours or maybe 2 days, you're basically looking at outdated information. And that is why, as a consultant, my recommendation always is to use these tools directly to basically look at those reports or basically understand and do the analysis. All right, that is it. That is all I wanted to talk about in this video. I hope you enjoyed watching this video and you learned something new. Thank you very much. Bye bye.